Well, I was an undergrad here at Berkeley back in the mid-1970s, and I started out as a chemical engineering major and discovered pretty quickly that I didn't like chemistry that much and moved around to look at different subjects. Decided on civil engineering, thought I was going to be a structural engineer. I took the required undergraduate geotechnical engineering course. I think it was called soil mechanics then, from Harry Seed. And I did well in the course, but I didn't really get engaged with it. But I took an elective after that, which is a foundation design class from Jim Mitchell. And that course and just getting to know Professor Mitchell at that time switched me to become a geotechnical engineer. And so he had a tremendous impact on my career in geotechnical engineering. I went to him after that class and said, I think I'd like to go to graduate school. Where should I go? And he said, well, you should just stay here. And so I did that and went through and got my master's degree. I got the Master of Engineering degree, which was kind of a 2-year program. It was basically all the PhD coursework without a dissertation. And I did that. Went to work for a few years in the Bay Area and then came back to do a PhD. And I was invited by Professor Seed to work on an earthquake engineering related problem. And I did that. But I also interacted with Professor Mitchell during that time. And he was just such a warm and generous person, as well as his obvious intellect and talent as an engineer, that it just made such an impression on me. And getting to know him more as a person than I had any of the other faculty, Professor Seed included, he just kind of became a role model for me as an engineer, as later an academic, and as a person. That somebody that I can't think of anybody I've looked up to more really over the course of my career than Jim Mitchell. He just had a lasting impact on me in all of our interactions. And I went up to the University of Washington, was a professor there for 36 years. I served on some committees with him and then some consulting panels as well. And I was always impressed by his ability to take a complex problem and find what was most important and explain it, identify it, explain it, and deal with it in a very efficient manner. He was always the grown-up in the room, even when there were a lot of us that were also thought we were grown-ups in the room. He was a guy who could come in and kind of settle an issue and explain it rationally, logically, and in a way that everybody was comfortable with. I remember at one point we were in such a meeting and he expressed an opinion on some matter that dealt with earthquakes and dynamics, and that was kind of my specialty. And he was off a little bit in his explanation of it. And so I spoke up and kind of tried to explain why things were a little bit different than what he had said. And it was an awkward thing for me as a former student to be speaking to the master in such a way. But he, just a sign of his humility and generosity, he, at the end, instead of saying, I stand corrected, he said, I stand instructed. And it always just made such an impression on me that it was such a generous thing for him to say, to admit that he learned something from me. And afterwards I thought, I taught Jim Mitchell something? How could this be? I had occasion to work with him on a liquefaction panel with the National Academy of Science and Engineering. And that was a great experience as well. Later on, just several years ago, I was involved with the Millennium Tower, litigation for the Millennium Tower, a building in San Francisco that was sinking and tilting. And I got to a point where I was the neutral expert. And so I was working with a mediation team trying to decide what really, from a technical basis, the problem was, because we were hearing lots of arguments from different parties that were involved and lots of experts from all over the place coming in and speaking on this. And there were some technical issues that went beyond the stuff that I felt like I knew well, including secondary compression of the old bay clay at large depth. And I told the mediation team, it was 5 attorneys, 2 retired judges, that I would like to bring somebody in to kind of listen to some of these articles and give arguments and give me some advice on it. And that was Jim Mitchell. And they said, well, who is this guy? And I explained kind of his background, which you could not help but be impressed by. And they said, well, he's done all these things. How old is he? And I think he's 90, 91 years old or so. And they said, you're going to bring a 91-year-old in? And I said, I sure am. And he came in, and again, the adult in the room impressed everybody immediately, saw what the issue was with respect to secondary compression, and it was just such a pleasure for me to be working with him and getting to spend time and walking him to and from the BART station because he'd come over to Berkeley afterwards. And it's just a guy who really is responsible for my career going in the direction it did, and a role model, someone you hope to match in terms of technical and teaching and just personal qualities. You know you never can, but you're better for having tried to do it. So I'm really happy to be here for this symposium, and really enjoying seeing old friends and old classmates, and hearing the range of opinions and experiences people have had with Jim Mitchell as long as I have. He was an important guy in my career and in my life.